Hello, everybody. So this is the set of podcasts for the week of January 19th for Algebra 2. And I want to start you guys out with the idea that if you were to solve this equation, you would just square root both sides. And you get x equals not just 5, but also negative 5. Because both of those, when you square them, you get 25. Okay? So this has two answers. Well, what about this? If you try typing it in your calculator, it's going to say error. It's going to give you an error message. Meaning, if you were to, I don't know what that was. Still don't know what that is. If you square root both sides and type this into your calculator, it's going to tell you error. Okay, so this is the point where we have to invent a new number, and that has to do with I. Okay, I'll explain I a little more as we go, but for right now, we need a new number. I isn't a variable, like pi isn't a variable. Pi is an actual number, 3.14156, so on down the line. Okay. It's in a format that's called A plus BI. This is called standard form. A is a real number. B is also real, but because it's times I, it's the imaginary part. They're called imaginary numbers. Now, I hate the fact that it's called imaginary. Okay, it makes it sound like it's fictitious, made up, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually used a lot in computer engineering and in other types of engineering, like aeronautical engineering and things like that. Okay, so it's for real, even though it's called imaginary. Okay, all right, here goes. 3 plus 2i is a complex number because it has a real piece and an imaginary piece. And this is standard form, 7 minus 3i. This is in complex format, standard form. And you write the I as a lowercase italics I. So negative 2 minus 6i, lowercase italics I. Okay? So the first thing I want to show you about is adding and subtracting them. So if you guys were to just have negative 2 minus 6x minus 2 minus 4x, all you guys would do is distribute this subtraction through. So you'd get plus 2x plus, oops, not x there, sorry about that. I invented that one. So plus 2 plus 4x, and you would just add like terms. Well, this isn't any different. I know we usually write x's first, but I'm just saying, distribute this in, and you get negative 2 minus 6i plus 2 plus 4i, and now collect like terms. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0, minus 6i plus 4i is minus 2i. Okay, so 0 minus 2i is probably the best answer, but negative 2i is just fine. Okay, now, come on. When you're adding, you're just adding like terms. So this piece and this piece add together to give you 14. Minus 6i plus a minus 9i is minus 15i. And that's it. You're done. There's nothing else to do. So adding and subtracting complex numbers is pretty straightforward. You don't even have to know what I is. You're just adding like terms. That's it. Okay, multiplying them. You just FOIL it. And then we have to talk a little more. So let's start by FOILing it. So first, negative 72 outside, minus 90i inside, minus, what's that, 72i? Oh, plus, sorry. 9 times 8, 72. They're both negative, so positive. Sorry about that mistake. And last is plus 90i squared. These are like terms. I could bring those together. Negative 72. So what would that be? So 18? 18i plus 90i squared. Okay, Your answer is supposed to be an a plus bi form. Check it out. You got this I squared that's hanging out. Okay, I said I'd talk a little more about I, so here we go. So let me clear this out. If it was this question, you guys could just square root both sides, and you get x equals a positive and a negative 5, because that's the square root of 25. If I could turn this into x squared is equal to negative 1 times 25, when we square root, we know what the answer to this is. Times 5. That negative 1 is still here. Well, the square root of negative 1, it turns out, is I. So x is equal to plus or minus, that's I times 5, and typically you would turn it around to go plus or minus 5i. Now, this I explained as being 5 squared, it gives you 25, or negative 5 squared also gives you 25. Well, let's check out what happens when you square these. 5i squared and negative 5i squared. When you have a product and you're squaring it, you can just distribute that to both of them. So you got 5 squared times I squared. And this would be negative 5 squared times I squared. Okay? So that's 25i squared, and negative 5 in parentheses squared is also 25, and you have I squared. Now we got to look at this. I just got done a second ago telling you that the square root of negative 1 is I. Well, what if I squared both of those? A square and a square root. Well, how about this? The square root of 25 is the same thing as the square root of 5 squared. Don't squares and square roots cancel each other out? So you just get 5. Kind of like when we had this. You said that's just x, because the square root of it is a square. Well, what about a square? Does it undo a square root? Because this was a square root undoing the square. Can a square undo a square root? Yeah. I squared is worth negative 1. This is a product. So you have 25 times negative 1 and 25 times negative 1. So you get negative 25 as required. Those things squared give you negative 25, which was the question. What squared is negative 25? Positive 5i and negative 5i. You square those and you get negative 25. So then let's go back to the question at hand. Here, I is the square root of negative 1, so I squared is negative 1. You're just squaring both of these. So this is worth negative 1. So you have 90 times negative 1, which is negative 90, which you can combine with this number that's in front, because it doesn't have the I. And what would it be? Negative 162 plus 18i, and that is in the a plus bi format. And you're done. So you FOIL it and then cash in the I squareds. Okay, so FOIL it, negative 36. Oops, minus 15i, I almost said plus 15i. Minus 48i, and minus 20i squared. These are like terms, bring those together. 63i, I think. And now you have this minus 20 times I squared, which is negative 1. So that turns into plus 20. And you have a minus 36 in front. Those can come together. So then you have minus 16 minus 63i as your final answer. Okay? FOIL it. 70 plus 63i minus 70i and then minus 63i squared. I was like, did I do something wrong here? Nope, because this gave me the plus 63i, and that's giving me the minus 63i squared. Okay, but I did something wrong. Hate that when I make arithmetic errors. Minus 7i, and that's minus 63. The I squared, it's a product, is negative 1. So that turns into plus 63. And 70, 133 minus 7i, I think, is what that would be. So this is your assignment, adding, subtracting, and multiplying complex numbers. So it's really 2 assignments in one day. Okay? Thank you guys for your time. Have yourself a great one.